Hey there, my name is Sue Brown-Moore, and I am a romance reviewer at gravetales.com and a freelance editor at DaVinciKittie.com. In this episode, I reunite with Tamara from Shelf Addiction as we talk about the next places we'll visit on our book journeys and where we plan to stamp our literary passports. In addition to some of the stories we're looking forward to reading this year, we also have some advice for new reviewers, and we talk about why we actually like 2- and 3-star reviews. We chat about bad guy villains and our adorable geeky husbands. We also touch on that oh-so-incendiary topic amongst book girlfriends, how to pronounce names. Now, being a prolific reader myself, I know how passionate readers can be about their favorite characters and stories, so I wanted to take a few brief seconds to clarify just a few things. Mistakes happen when you speak off the cuff, so here are a few corrections for what you'll hear in this episode. About 19 minutes in, I mentioned the Presslock series by Brooke Blaine and Ella Frank. I erroneously pronounced Dylan's last name as Preston. It's actually Prescott. A small slip, but fans of the series will certainly catch it. About 22 minutes in, I talk about Lisa Kessler's Legend of Love and how Lisa mentioned this was her first book ever with sex in the first chapter. The book she was actually talking about was number 3 in the Muse Chronicles, Breath of Passion. So when you hear us talk about it, just assume I'm talking about books 2 and 3 because I will definitely be reading them both. If you haven't listened to episode 1 of this book passport series, you can find it on gravetales.com/podcasts or shelfaddiction.com. I hope you enjoy the conclusion of our fun chat about book travels. If you love what you hear or just want to shout out, you can find me at DaVinciKittie or at Gravetales on Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. Be sure to visit Tamara too. Her information is in the show notes below. Now on to the episode. Tamara, thanks so much for joining me today for part 2 of our book passport podcast. That is a mouthful.
Yes, it is a mouthful, and I'm glad to be here.
This one's going to be a little bit different than episode 1. So for anyone who heard episode 1, which is hosted on Shelf Addiction's page, check that out for sure. In that episode, we talked about books that we've read, places that we've been. So we've stamped our passport in these different, times and places all around the world, all around the galaxy. Some crazy stuff that we talked about. Today, we're going to talk about places we're going to go, places we want to stamp our passport. Can be any time, can be any place, can be any type of book, although I suspect many of them will be romance because we're both romance fans. Mm-hmm. So, why don't you get us started? What is number 1 on your list?
Well, to fully explain myself, my list is actually in no particular order. It's just, they're kind of all equal to me. So I just, just because I say this is the first one doesn't mean it's my number 1 necessarily, because I had over 500 books to choose from. It was really, really hard to narrow them down. So just that little disclaimer before we jump in.
Okay. I had a lot too. I totally feel you.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one on my list is Into the Fire by Janine Frost. And it is, paranormal romance, urban fantasy. And it is the 4th book in the Night Prince series. So this is a series. It's the 4th and final book from what I understand. So this also takes place in Romania and Florida and a couple other places. You know how Janine Frost likes to travel the globe.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. So if you love Vlad, if you read her Night Huntress series and you are familiar with Vlad from that series, this is all about him. This is his side story. So it's fun stuff.
So you've read the first 3 and this is the final book, right?
Right. Yes.
I think that's where I'm at too. I remember reading them as they came out, and I'm pretty sure I read the second one. I think I read the third one, and I just haven't caught up. So I needed to add that one to my list too. But I think I had like 300 books to go through on my list. So, time.
I know, but definitely make time for this one if you can, because I like to finish out series and then move on. I can't fully move on with series that I love until I'm done with it. So
yeah, and I think part of my reticence there was because I didn't want to finish it because it was the last one, and I didn't know if there would be any other ones in that story world. But now there is a new series coming out with Ian, which I'm super pumped about. So I'm definitely going to finish it so that I have all the information, the whole timeline going into Ian's story.
So when does Ian's story come out? Do you know?
I don't even know.
Oh.
I just heard snippets of it, and I was just overwhelmed with excitement. I
Oh
can't.
my gosh, I love Ian.
I know. I've wanted his books since I first met him. Mm-hmm. And there's I think his name is Timothy. I don't know if maybe this is included in the stuff that I haven't read, like the last book in Night Prince, but Timothy was the other friend in Ian and Bones' group when they were turned into vampires. And we don't know anything about him, and they talk a little bit about him.
Right.
And I'm really curious what his story is and if we're going to see him in the next series.
We might, or she might end up, doing his own if he becomes like a fan favorite. You know how the fans get if they start liking him, if he pops up a couple more times, we might see his own series.
I hope so. I don't want to see the world end. It's such a cool world, especially, and I won't give any spoilers, but especially with the cool stuff that happened at the end of the original Night Huntress series.
Oh, I know. With that said, I would love if they would jump 20 years into the future and see what happens. Yes,
me too. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had this secret hope that Ian would be with this other character that we can't talk about.
I know.
Sadly, that's not happening.
No, not happening.
Can you imagine the anger from Cat and Bones?
Oh my gosh. Bones would go ballistic. I know.
Oh, Bones, my special book boyfriend.
He is special, that's for sure.
He really is. There's just something I can't explain about some of these heroes that are so memorable. And maybe it's because he was my first one with paranormal, or maybe it's because he's just so diverse. Like there's so much about him. He's just capable of doing everything. Mm-hmm. And he's charming and sexy and all the things. And I can't, how does that even come about? Like, how do you get that guy in your head and put him on page? I don't know, but I'm so glad.
I know. I wish I knew that. If I did, maybe I would try my hand at writing, but I'm firmly set in the reader side of things, not the writer side. So I
sure do love being a reader. It's the best.
It is.
All right. So my list also is, I have 10. We'll see if we get through all 10. They're not really in any order. These are just, I had a list of about 350 or so. Some were on Goodreads. Some were, I started making these separate Amazon lists because my Goodreads list got a little bit out of control. And I thought, I'm never going to get through all these books. And I even found some on my list that I had actually read already, but I hadn't actually taken off the list or scored. And there were some that had reviews that were still on the list in the TBR. And I thought, okay, this is out of control. So
this is a good activity in actually cleaning out the list. At least I found that for me. So
yes, it made me actually think about what I care about reading right now and what I want to put my energy into.
Yes,
and so,
for sure.
Looking at my Amazon list, I have 2 of them. One of them is Amazon books, just Kindle books I want to buy that I don't want to buy right now because it's going to just waste away on my Kindle. And then the other is Kindle Unlimited books I want to check out. The problem with just checking it out is that you have a limit of 10 and it's full all the time. So I just made a list and I thought as I clear them off, I can pull them on. So some of these came from all of my lists. So the first one is called Frankendom by Robin Rotham. And it's, I have the blurb here. I'm not going to read it, the whole thing, but it's basically, kind of a Frankenstein themed story. And I don't know too much about it. I do know that it's male, female, very kinky, lots of BDSM. And this one is in my brain right now because
Wait, I gotta stop you. Male, female.
Yeah.
I never read a book like that.
Really? I love them. That kind of menage, male, female, where it's like, it's a true triangle where everybody has a relationship with everybody else. That's my favorite kind of menage.
Oh
so it's not just the girl in the middle. The guys are together too.
What? Okay, I gotta check it out.
I'm pretty sure this is one of those because in the blurb it says menage in every combination, and I thought, okay, that sounds like a true triangle. But I was at a kink retreat this past weekend for Eden Bradley in San Francisco, which is a different subject. But one of the things came up, one of the topics we talked about was books. What are some good books in the kinky space if you're into that kind of thing? And this one was highly recommended. And I've heard it recommended before by people who like that sort of read. And I thought, okay, I have to put this on my list. I have to make this happen because I think I'm going to like it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, look, I am so all in it now. I'm like super interested. Now I'm like, look, my ears perked up like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Okay, yes.
I love the kinky stuff. I used to read really traditional romance, like we talked about in the last episode where James Mallory from the historicals was my first real book boyfriend. But there's the tropes, they're so predictable, and you always know exactly what you're going to get, and that there's a comfort in that. But I really like not knowing. I really like knowing I'm going to get an HEA, a happily ever after, but not knowing what's going to happen on the way and what kind of crazy stuff the characters are going to have to deal with. Mm-hmm. So I'm all about the kink.
All right. Noted.
Yeah. They're not all kinky. My list has some normal stuff too.
Okay.
Okay, what's up for you?
Okay, so this one, I've heard a lot of buzz about it. It's contemporary realistic fiction, and it's also YA, and that is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. I don't know where it's located. I have searched, and nowhere does anyone talk about where this is. I just know that it is in suburban and, like a poor neighborhood as well in America, somewhere in America. And this is kind of like one of those serious books. You know how last time you're like, oh, you like those serious books.
Yes, you do.
Well, this is one of those. We have a 16-year-old who moves between two worlds. I guess she is also from a poor neighborhood, where she lives. And then she goes to a fancy prep school. And I guess the seriousness comes in where she sees an officer kill her friend, her unarmed friend. And things just kind of spiral from there. So, it's had a lot of talk and things like that. And I think it's a great convo starter. So definitely this is on my list. I will be reading this within the next couple months for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned you didn't know where it was because I totally missed that. The whole theme of the podcast is locations, about passport locations. And I don't actually know where Frankendom is set. I did some research for making my list. And for that one, I just put Frankenstein's lab somewhere. Somewhere in the world.
Yeah, it's weird. Some of these books, on Goodreads, some of them tell you where they're located.
Yeah.
And then some don't. And it's I wonder why. And then if it doesn't say in the synopsis, you're stuck trying to figure out where it is. And it's a fiasco sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes I will look through the reader comments or reviews, hoping that somebody will point it out. Mm-hmm. But then I just end up finding out way too much. So some reviews aren't reviews so much as cliff notes of the books. Yeah. And that's really what I want to avoid.
Oh, I know. Look, don't get me going on that topic. You know how we talked about reviewing versus recapping and, telling the whole plot. But okay, we won't get on that because I'll just go on a rampage. So.
For the listeners who are not sure what we're talking about, both Tamara and I are experienced reviewers. We've been both reviewing for several years, and we have our own styles that we do and preferences for how to write a review. But I think there's a universal understanding among reviewers who are experienced and do this passionately that you don't give spoilers and you don't give an outline of the book. You talk about the great points in the book, but you let people enjoy it for themselves.
Right. Right. So if you guys are newbie reviewers or somewhat experienced reviewers, listen to us. Trust us. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
And if you want to see an example of what that looks like, go to our sites and check out a couple of the reviews and see if it's your style.
Yeah, for sure.
So this one, number 2 on my list, I actually do have a location for because it's the Chicagoland Vampires. So it's in Chicago. Mm-hmm. This is Some Girls Bite by Chloe Neal. I found out about this. Several of these, actually, I found out about through the Vampire Book Club's Alpha Showdown. Are you familiar with that?
I am not familiar with that.
It's this huge event that happens every year, and I've participated a couple years as a blogger who represents one of the heroes. In fact, this year, 2017, I represented Mad Rogan from Ilana Andrews' Hidden Legacy story world, which I think we talked about on the last episode. Excuse me. But some of these heroes show up year after year, and I keep thinking, okay, who the hell is this Ethan guy? Or who is this Rhysand guy? I have to know who these people are. So some of this came from, I got to figure out why these guys are so popular, or these girls in some cases are so popular. Right. So this is about Ethan Sullivan is the hero in this that I was really interested in. So I'm really hoping that it's another vampire series that I can get involved in. So I haven't read a really good immersive vampire contemporary series in a while, and I'm looking forward to something that's kind of like Night Huntress, but obviously not exactly like Night Huntress.
Right. Well, you know what? This series has actually been on my TBR for a long time. I think since 2009. I think it's been on there since it started, and I have not gotten to it yet. So you've got to tell me how it is, when you started.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, okay, my next one is also, I think it's vampires. Yes, it is. Correct me if I'm wrong. I am new to this author. I've never read anything by her, and people just keep recommending her over and over and over. So this is Burn for Me, which is the first book in the Hidden Legacy series by Ilona. Pronounce her name for me. Ilona?
I say Ilona Andrews. I don't know if that's right.
Ilona Andrews, because I'm like, I'm going to mess up this name. I know it.
Yeah.
And this takes place in Houston, Texas. So I'll be going to Texas. And I guess it's about a woman named Nevada who is a detective. And I guess she's all about, I don't know, making sure she has the chops to do the job, I guess. Have you read this?
I have. I think I had it on my list from last time, but did I talk about White Hot? I don't know. But Burn for Me and White Hot are the first two books in the series, and they are both stellar.
Okay.
Freaking stellar. Burn for Me was one of my top books of, I think, was it 2014, 2015, whatever year it was released. It was one of my top books of the year. So it is totally worth your time. And seriously, put it at the top of your list. You're going to love it.
Awesome. Because I could not tell from the synopsis if this was vampires or something else. I couldn't tell.
It's magic. It's magic.
Magic. Oh, okay.
So I like it. I don't know. I don't think there's any vampires. I think it's strictly magic. So it's basically like the world we have now, but if magic were a known thing and it had been sort of politicized, right? So there's houses and there's different like types of magic, and the people who are very powerful, they interbreed. Basically, they marry for their talents can make more powerful people like them, basically. And so she basically just dives into this world of magic with this really super powerful guy who can kill people with basically a thought, level entire cities with a thought. He's the guy that I was talking about in the Vampire Book Club's Alpha Showdown that I'm representing this year, and he's at least in the semifinals or close to the semifinals last I checked. So he's definitely good book boyfriend material.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
So yes. Okay. I think I might have to bump this a little higher on the list then.
Well, let me know how you like it, because I always like to hear other people's take on it. Because, as bloggers, we're sort of taste curators, and not everybody likes the same thing. So I always like to see what people liked and how it differs from what I like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. I'll definitely let you know, because now I'm really intrigued. So I might have to squeeze this in real soon.
And actually, Ilona Andrews is a writing team. This is actually pretty popular now, having two people write a book. And my next one is a team of two as well. But they're a husband-wife team. And I think her first name is Ilona. I don't know. Andrews, I don't know where that came from. But they're an interesting pair. The way they write is kind of cool. I think she writes the Nevada perspective and he writes the Rogan.
Oh, okay. So that makes sense to me. I don't know if I told you this before, but I always get nervous when it's more than one writer, because I always get, I guess nervous that it's going to be, a night and day writing between the two. And if they're writing from the same point of view, or if they're writing, you can kind of just tell, and it's like not smooth sometimes, but I suspect I won't have a problem here since everyone loves it so much.
What I love most about their style together, and I think they also wrote Kate Daniels, their style together is that because she writes from the female perspective, so it's almost like a raw, personal feel to it. It's very vulnerable and yet strong, which I loved. But his is very alpha male. It's like, I can't imagine a woman writing that voice as well as a man. And maybe some women can, I don't know. But the fact that it's a husband and wife team that writes it totally makes sense to me, because I can tell there's a lot of oomph behind that male voice. And it feels like a really powerful man.
Okay. All right. You've eased my worries. I think it'll be okay.
And I mean, zero disrespect to any authors who write male voice, because you people rock and I love your stuff. So that said, that said works perfectly with what I'm going into, which is Try by Ella Frank. It's the first book in the Temptation series. Now, this this is older. It's an older book, but I'm really interested in it because I think it's still an ongoing series. I don't know if it's finished yet, but these characters were featured in another trilogy that I read recently, which was Presslock. And that was by a pair of authors called Ella Frank and Brick Blaine. And I fell in love with Presslock. Presslock is basically, two characters, Ace Lock and Dylan, Preston, I think is his last name. So in the media, they're Presslock. And, he's an action star in Hollywood, and Dylan is an underwear model, basically. And they have this sweeping romance that's crazy and riddled with paparazzi. But I loved it because I love male romance. And these characters, Tate and Logan, were in the wedding sequence, like the very final book, and they've been just really cool characters. And I wanted to see how they started, so I'm really excited to read this series, which starts with Try.
Okay. Oh,
and it's in Chicago, so I'm visiting Chicago again.
Yeah, you're spending some time in Chicago.
I am. I'm really going to hit the sights there.
All right. Well, my next one is somewhere in Ohio, somewhere just in Ohio. And that is The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. And this is a contemporary mystery young adult title. And are you familiar with Mindy McGinnis?
I'm not.
I've read several books by her, and she's one of the more versatile authors. I mean, you know, she writes dystopia, she writes contemporary, she writes, I think it's kind of horror almost. You don't come across many authors, at least I don't, who write in so many different genres. So she's really flexible in that way. But she's always good. Every book I've read by her, I've really enjoyed. So this is definitely appealing to me. Alex is the main heroine, and he knows how to kill someone. She knows how to kill someone, excuse me. And she doesn't feel bad about it. So when her older sister is murdered, she kind of uses the language of violence to try to figure out what is happening, tries to find out who did it and punish who did it. And of course, she meets a guy. It's always a guy. So that's, I think, where I don't know if it's any romance undertones, but it sounds like it could be between the two of them. But yeah, it's definitely contemporary. It's definitely mystery, who killed her sister type of thing. And I'm really looking forward to it. It was a big thing last year at BEA, now called Book Expo last year. So we'll see. It's a little old now, but I'm about it. So hopefully it'll be good.
So is it YA or NA?
No, it's YA.
Okay.
It's definitely YA. I believe the girl is 16 or 17 years old. Yeah. And I'd like to know how she knows how to kill someone. They did not say that. Yeah, they didn't say that, but apparently somehow, some way, she is a killer. So that should be interesting.
Maybe that's part of the story arc.
Yeah. Explain how she got there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, who she is.
Maybe she starts out as an innocent type girl, and then her sister dies, and then she learns how to become a killer. Maybe that's it.
Maybe. So is it paranormal or is it contemporary?
No, it's contemporary. It doesn't have any paranormal undertones to my knowledge. So
no possibility of a demon possession then?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. But, I don't know. I mean, it stars the star athlete, in valedictorian, and a prom queen girlfriend. So I don't know. It's definitely different. So
yeah. Well, speaking of different, the next one on my list is Legend of Love by Lisa Kessler. And what's different about this is it's the second book in her Muse Chronicles series. I read a lot of paranormal romance and a lot of contemporary, and this one sort of straddles the line between the two genres because the series is about women who are, I don't want to say possessed, inspired by muses of the ancient Greeks. So the muse of epic poetry and such. There's a certain number of them, 9 or 12, I forget. And each book is about one of the modern muses who are just normal women who, I don't know that they have special abilities. Maybe they have some small special abilities, and they're matched up with a guardian. So each woman is matched up with a guardian. He's also just a normal man. And he doesn't have any special abilities until he comes into contact with her, in which time he develops protection, some way to protect her. So Legend of Love is the reason I'm really interested in this one is because Lisa said that this was her first book ever with sex in chapter 1. And I perked up. I was like, oh, Sex in Chapter 1? Yes. I'll read that. Because I love her writing anyway. And it's a really cool story universe, which is set in Crystal City, California, USA, which is not a real place, but it's a mix of sort of Santa Monica and San Diego.
Cool. So you know what? Ironically, I actually interviewed her.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, this story sounds very familiar to me.
Yeah.
I did not read the book, but, she was explaining to me about all of the goddesses and her, their human counterparts. I'm like, oh, that's so different and unique. I'd never, usually the men aren't, I guess the women aren't the paranormal person, and the men are the, I guess the human mate or counterpart. And it's like not even a mated thing. She said they just want to be with them, and I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. And then I guess the things develop if they get together. I'm like, oh, that's so random and awesome, because it's very outside of the norm in that genre. So
it is, and that's part of what drew me to it originally, was that it was about female empowerment as much, but not in the straightforward feminist sort of way. It was more just like, this is the way my universe works, and all these people are amazing, and it just works. I like that I like that the men are not the focus of the series. It's a sisterhood. Yeah. And you don't see a lot of that in romance.
No, you don't. Not really. It's always the men. The men are always the tribe, and then the women come into the tribe as mates and other things. So,
and I think that part of the reason that happens that way is because readers want to read about the men. In romance, straight women like to read about hot men, right? That's why we pick the books up. Yeah. And the great relationships they have with their leading ladies. But I like that this turns it on its head, because you still get the great relationship and you still get the hot guys, but you also get the ladies who are an inspiration and a role model. And it's like an extra boost.
Yeah. And I love that, because, I love a strong leading woman in a book. I really do. So that's going to be fun. And let me know how you like it after you read the first one. I mean, I did add those to my list, but they didn't make this list. So I would love to hear how you like them.
I read the first one, and I can tell you it's great.
Oh, you did read? Okay.
Mm-hmm. This is number 2. It's one of the few that I have on my list that are a continuation of a series, just because Lisa tends to draw the sex out. She doesn't usually put it in the beginning of the book. I've read several of her other series as well. And when she told me this one had it in the front, because, let's be honest, I like the good stuff. That's why I read romance. I don't read closed door romance. I read the stuff with the open door, kinky, give me everything, right? So when she told me that, I was like, yes, this is going on my list.
So in the first book, how long was it before we got some,
It's been a while since I read it. I read it last year, but I want to say it's something like at least halfway.
Oh, okay, so it's kind of like that build up type of thing. Was it worth it when you got to the payoff? Was it good?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. She does a great job with that.
Okay, well, that's good, because there's nothing like nothing against people that write these kind of the softer books, or the hand holding books, or the peck on the cheek books, but that's just not my thing either. I'm like, don't make me wait for something and it just falls flat because it's so typical, or not that hot, or not that spicy. So
I know. Yeah. I know it's just a different genre. And sometimes if a book is miscategorized, it's a huge disappointment, and it's not the fault of the author always. Sometimes it's just you didn't expect what the book was actually about.
I know. And sometimes it's my own fault, because I have been known to do this. I'll glance over the synopsis. I try not to read too many of the Goodreads comments. Yeah, and then I'll be like, wait, I missed something. I didn't realize this is what I was getting. So sometimes it's my fault too. So it is what it is.
I like to go into Amazon and look at the 1 and 2 star reviews and the 3-star reviews. Those will really tell you why people didn't like something, especially the 3-star ones, because they're a little more honest. And the ones are sometimes just hate reviews, but the 2s and 3s are like, I didn't like this because of this reason. And sometimes that's the reason I liked a book, and I'll buy it based on a 2-star review.
Really? That's really interesting. I do agree with you as far as the median reviews, the 2 and 3s being more honest. I definitely don't really read the 5-star reviews. I mean, I hate to say it. The 5 stars, self-explanatory. You loved everything. Most of the time, those 5 stars, they rarely critique anything, but that's a whole nother, I go off on another, tangent, but I agree with you. So definitely.
So are we on number 5 now, I think?
Yeah, I think it's number 5.
All right. What's next on your list?
Next on my list is, oh, here we are. The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. This is another contemporary romance. I believe it's YA, and this takes place in New York City, New York. And you guys might know Nicola Yoon from Everything, Everything. That really was a winner last year, I think, or year before last, and they recently had a movie that came out that people loved or hated. It seemed like either they loved it a lot or hated it a lot. But this is about a girl who is very, I guess, matter of fact, like she's into science and facts, right? She's like the math nerd, not the fate person, not destiny, not love. And of course she meets this guy, you know, and it's always a romance and it's always teenage angsty and you know, so how their worlds converged and what kind of future can they have when they are so opposite, basically, is my understanding of this book. And I just really have been itching to read this author, and I've heard good things about this title, so I figured, why not throw it on there? You know, how she's at her pace, this will be a movie as well, so I might as well read it now. So, yes. She's 1 for 1. 1 book, 1 movie, so the second one probably will be too.
So her first book was turned into a movie?
Yeah, I believe that was her first book. Yeah.
Wow, good for her. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I believe that is her first book.
That's awesome. Yeah. So definitely read it now before it's a movie.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Now my number 5 is going back into Kinkland. This is The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty by A.N. Rocklore, which is Anne Rice.
Yep.
And the location, all I could figure was Sleeping Beauty's castle, because I really don't know where this is set. It's a spin on the traditional Sleeping Beauty fairy tale, but instead of a kiss, the prince wakes her with a sexual initiation.
Oh,
so
God.
it's a classic. Oh, I know that got me right there. I was like, oh, bye. Right?
Okay.
A classic erotic romance. It's been recommended to me several times.
Well, let me tell you, I did read the whole thing.
You did?
I did. Now, okay, full disclosure, I read the first 3 books like in the early 90s. Because they're pretty old. And then she, you know, Anne Rice had published a continuation like in the last 2 years, I think it was. So I read that as well. I think the first 3 were much better than the last one. The last one almost she should have just let sleeping dogs lie, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the first 3, they're definitely kinky and hot. If you said you like that, so it is. And I mean, 10 years ago, you know, 12 years ago when I read it, I kind of was like shocked. I was shocked in the best way. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on in these books? It was something I'd never read before.
I like hearing when people said they were shocked about books, because it's pretty hard to shock me. It's pretty hard to find something that's like, I do have lines. I have moral lines I won't cross, but I've seen a lot and read a lot. And so I always like those. I look forward to those books when people say, oh, this one was shocking.
Oh my gosh. But you know what? I don't know if I'm a good judge to say what's shocking, because at that point I hadn't read a lot of erotica or, you know, BDSM type stuff. I was kind of a newbie at that point. And so when I read it, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I don't know if I read it today. I mean, I don't know. Her newest book was kind of, you know, not as interesting to me. So maybe it wasn't as sexy to me as the first 3, but I don't know. I'd like to see if you like it though.
Okay. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I'm also curious, and part of the reason I haven't read it yet is because I did read another book of hers, and I think it's the only Anne Rice book I've actually read. I haven't even read The Vampires. I don't know. I saw the movie and I was like, yeah, that's the very traditional world of vampires where they're practically corpses and they can't go out in the sun at all. And I really like the flexibility of the ones who are more human-like, but also powerful. So I think what I read was, I'm going to say the name wrong, maybe Exit to Eden or something like that. It was basically a private island that was sort of a slave market sort of deal. And while it was interesting, it was titillating, but it also took some turns I didn't expect, and it was way more emotional than I expected and pretty angsty. And I thought, I don't know if this is normal for Anne Rice or if it's just this particular book.
No, it is kind of normal. There's going to be, that's kind of normal. I've read another book by her, Cry to Heaven, that while it wasn't labeled as erotica or anything, it was pretty intense with the sexual stuff. And it was also kind of angsty and like a little shocking in a, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening kind of way. Mm-hmm. So Claiming Sleeping Beauty kind of has a few moments, in my opinion, from what I recall, that were kind of like, oh man, that's, messed up. But, I don't know. That's Anne Rice. She's kind of, she's a quirky lady. That's all I got to say,
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So, it's my turn.
Yes. What's number 6?
Okay. So I don't know why I have so many contemporary romances on my list right now. It's really crazy. I usually have much more paranormal, but the next one is Till Death by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and this is contemporary romance again with a mystery, kind of sub-genre in there. And this is located in West Virginia. So, I love Jennifer Armentrout. I've read her series on Angels and Demons. I can't even think of the name of it right now.
Lux?
Yes. No, the Lux is the aliens, and I've read that and loved it.
Okay.
And then she had one about angels and demons, and I guess apparently they're gargoyles as well. So that was very interesting. I can't think of the name, but I did enjoy it. So this is definitely a departure from that, fantasy, urban fantasy. And this kind of takes place in a small town where this woman, I guess she escaped this twisted serial killer known as the Groom, and then she returns to help her family run an inn. So that means, things kind of start happening, and, first a woman disappears, then another, and then she starts getting calling cards and, all kind of craziness. So obviously it's going to be a serial killer story. Which could be very good or very bad. I don't know. So we'll find out. But I love Jennifer Armentrout's work. Everything I've read from her, I've loved. So I'm curious to see how I feel about her contemporary, romance/mystery. So
The Groom. That's a creepy name for a serial killer.
It is, isn't it? So
I was just thinking, the creepier the name, the creepier the perception, right? It makes the things they do that much worse.
Yeah, and I really hope he is a bad guy because, and I mean, not to just say, I want a bad serial killer in the book, but I do. I really like a villain that's a real villain. I hope she doesn't go nice on us and like cop out, and the villain is like, oh, this poor soul. I want like a bad villain,
Yeah.
So we'll see what she does.
Yeah. Okay, number 6. My number 6 is Raphael by D.B. Reynolds. This is Vampires in America, number 1. And this is in Malibu, California. I have lots of California on my list. That makes sense because I can easily travel to Malibu. Mm-hmm. I think there's 11 books in this series. I don't know if it's done yet. I've heard a lot about Raphael specifically from, he was another contender in the Alpha Showdown. And he keeps coming back. And so I thought, all right, this guy is worth a look. Have you read this series?
No, I haven't.
All right, well, I'll have to report back and let you know. It's another one of the vampire series. So I think I have 2 or 3 of them on my list. So apparently I'm coming back more into a paranormal phase, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it comes and goes. I find that with fantasy and paranormal, like I'll be devouring it like nobody's business. And then suddenly I find myself reading a lot of contemporary things, not even on purpose. I just kind of fall into it. And I'm kind of tired of that. And then I go right back into my joy, which is paranormal. So,
yeah, it is cyclical. I think because you sort of, well, if you're me, you sort of gorge on what you love. And then I hit a point where I'm just done. I don't want any more vampires, no more shifters, no more fairies, no more angels. I want a detective or a seal or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's normal, maybe just not as extreme as I do it. My husband teases me about that.
Oh, well, what does he read? Does he read like?
Oh gosh, he doesn't read. He doesn't read at all. He knows how to read. Let me clarify. He knows how to read. But he falls asleep. Oh. I know it sounds really weird, but like the best sedative in the world for him is to start reading a book, even if it's a book he would enjoy. He just falls asleep. So.
Oh, that's too bad. But I guess that's just as bad as my husband. But he will read, but it has to have pictures. So if it's a comic book, he'll read it.
Well, that's okay, because comic books are cool right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like funny. So I have my hardcover and he has his comic book. So, yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Cool. So is it my turn? I guess it is.
Yes.
Okay, so my next one is My Lady Jane. This is the first in the Lady Janey series. And this, kind of goes back to that thing where I was complaining earlier about multiple authors, but I'm nervous, but I've heard good things. So this is by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. So 3 authors have touched this book. It's historical fiction in YA, historical fantasy in YA, and it takes place in England. So obviously I think there's 3 points of view going on from what the synopsis reads, Edward, Jane, and Clifford, and we'll see how that goes. So I've heard a lot of good things about it. The ratings are really good. I love England. I like fantasy. I'm about it. So I'm definitely into this. So we'll see how it goes. It's been sitting on my shelf for a long while. So it's time to crack this open and get going.
Historical fantasy YA in England. That is definitely different.
It is. So I wonder if it's like partially a retelling of something, and I just don't know what it is. I'm not really sure what to expect, and I really tried to stay away from the reviews because it seemed like it was a lot of fangirl and boying going on about this book, so I didn't want to.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's really hard to write a review for a book like that, where you really can't tell anything about it without giving away the good parts. Mm-hmm. So, like, I read one recently called The Red by Tiffany Rice, and I almost can't talk about it without telling why it's so amazing. It's a fantasy erotic stories, but it's set in modern day. And it has kind of the feel of a billionaire art collector romance, but it's not. I mean, it's like, all I can say is just read it. Just read it, because it will blow your mind. But I can't say why, because I'll give away the fun parts.
Okay, well, maybe this is one of those kind of books where people just can't help themselves.
Maybe. Well, let us know what you think about that.
Yeah, I sure will. A review will be coming or something following this one. I think it was on my personal list, but I mean, everyone's been posting, so I might as well throw in my opinion in on that as well. So,
how new is it?
I think it came out fall of last year. If I have that right. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny that, like, I think we talked a little bit before we started recording, and both of us had a lot of stuff on our list that aren't in our review list. So we each have our own separate lists of books we've committed to review and potentially post reviews of. And then these are personal reads. So if I decide I want to review these, which is very likely, if I like a book, I almost always review it. I'm looking at something like 25 more reviews by the end of the year, and I did a count yesterday. I've already reviewed 45 this year.
Ooh, so, you're good.
Holy cow.
I'm feeling like a slacker over here. My goodness.
But I read them really fast. I read in like 2 to 3 days, and then I write the review as I'm reading, and I highlight and make notes, and then I don't know. I don't have a life, basically. That's what it comes down to. No life.
Oh, no. Well, honestly, I plan on catching up to you real soon because, I mentioned off air, I'll be doing something different for work. So my days might be shorter and less stressful, so I have more time to read. Yay!
Oh, that'll be so nice.
Yes.
Like a vacation, practically.
I know. It's going to be amazing.
So if I were taking a vacation, my number 7 is, the location is a magical fairy kingdom. I don't know where. I just know that it's A Court of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas.
Yes, I love it.
You read it?
I read all 3.
Oh, good. So it sounds like you liked them.
Oh, I did. I really did. Now, just a little warning for you. The first book was so to me. Okay. And I've heard other people say that as well. But it wasn't bad. It was just, okay. But the second book will blow your mind. It's like, wow, what happened? It's like it was a major turning point in the writing for this series. And it just evolved into something different. So it's awesome.
That is really good to know, because a lot of times if I don't like the first book, I'll just drop the series. So I'll make sure to persevere. If I'm not crazy into it, I'll persevere into the second. Sort of like we were talking about on the last episode, we were talking about the Black Dagger Brotherhood, and if you don't like Hollywood Story, if you get to number 2 and you're still not liking it, you should just drop the series, because that's basically how the series is. So I'll use that same mentality. I had a question for you. How do you say the hero's name?
Rhysand.
Rhysand. Okay.
There's another. Well, in the first book, it's I'm thinking of the second book, which is he's my favorite. I would totally steal him away, and he would be mine. But okay, so the first one is Tamlin. So Tamlin is the hero in the first book. So it's Feyre and Tamlin.
Does the book tell you how to pronounce her names?
No, but that's how I pronounce it.
Well, that sounds right, because I actually looked this up, because someone like Feyre, it is not spelled like it sounds. No. And so I did some Googling, and I found a video on YouTube that was the world of Sarah J. Maas, how to pronounce the character names, and Tamlin, Rhysand, Feyre were on there, and I actually wrote down the phonetic pronunciation so I wouldn't say it wrong.
Yeah, I see how you spelled it, and that is how I say it, Rhysand, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad to know I wasn't totally off base. That's actually a fairly popular name in fantasy.
Rhysand?
Or Rhysand. Yeah, I've read it several times.
Yeah, in the book, actually, he goes by Rhys. She always calls him Rhys. Just drops the A-N-D on the end.
Okay. So it's interesting to hear like that you in your mind read R-Y-H-S as Rhys, because my brain says that's Rhys, which doesn't sound good at all. Rhys sounds way better.
And you know what? I think I might have played around with it a couple different ways before I said I'm going to say Rhys, because that's how I think when she calls him that short, that's what I think it should sound like. So
it does make sense. I mean, it's an easier name to say anyway.
Yeah. Names.
Names are hard in these fantasy and especially ones that are multicultural. Like, if you don't know how to speak the language that it's based in, you're just going to butcher it.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel bad, but like when I was doing video reviews, I would always count on somebody correcting me, because I'm like, I know I am saying this wrong, so I'm just going to apologize right now. Sorry.
And sometimes if you've read a series for so long, your brain has already decided how it wants to pronounce something. And then you start talking about it to other friends and they say it differently, and you look at each other with the cat eyes like, girlfriend, you said that wrong.
Yeah.
Right? It's a fight.
Right. It's like that though sometimes.
Okay, so what's your number 8? Is this your last one?
No, I actually have 2 more.
Oh, good. Then I think we both have about 10.
Okay, the next one is actually, I don't know, maybe I should count this as 3 in 1. Because I have to finish a series. I have to finish the 7 series by Danica Dark. And this is paranormal romance, and this takes place in Austin, Texas. And I love this series, and I stumbled across this because someone in one of my book clubs kept mentioning this author. And she's like, you like these books, you really should check out these. So I'm like, okay. I finally do, and I love it. So the first book starts with 7 years, and I love the titles too. So the series is 7 years, 6 months, 5 weeks, 4 days, 3 hours, 2 minutes, 1 second, and then that's the end. So I thought the titles were really unique, and it's a kind of like a traditional paranormal romance where you have a like a pack, like we mentioned earlier, you have a pack of guys and then the women come into the pack. So each book is about a different couple. And then as the series goes on, you see more and more people, and the cast gets larger and larger because you're incorporating a new couple, but you're still maintaining the old characters as well. So I really like it.
That's really good to hear. So the 7 years, is that the name of the first book?
Yes, 7 years is book 1.
So you said you had to read, it was a 3 in 1. So you're committing to the series, or you need to read the series before you can read 7 years?
I have to read book 5, 6, and 7.
Oh, so you need to finish the series.
I need to finish the series, yes.
Gotcha. So I'm really glad to hear you talking about this book and series, because we featured it on Grave Tales. Several books in the series were featured on Grave Tales. And I was not the reviewer who took those reviews. And the person who took it, she loved it. loved it. And I just never got around to reading it. So I'm really excited now. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I think it's really good. It's definitely got some spice in there, so it's good. Good stuff.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to put that on my list, on my crazy long list,
Yay.
Which I have in multiple places. All right, so my next one is called Kushiel's Dart. I don't know if I'm going to mispronounce all kinds of stuff in this one. The location is the land of Terre d'Ange. I don't know.
Is that French? Terre d'Ange?
I imagine it is, but
d'Ange? I don't know.
I don't know. I tried to look at the pronunciation. I couldn't find it. I could find like the individual words, but I couldn't find it as a universe pronunciation. So I figured I'd just risk it. But it's a fantasy, so it's a little outside of my normal reading range. It's not a romance. I used to read a lot of fantasy and sci-fi that didn't have romance, more straight genre. It's been a while, but a few of my trusted sources have told me that this one's worth the read if you like fantasy worlds. And one of them said, "Oh, hey, I just found out you went to a kink retreat last weekend." The heroine in this book, the line between pain and pleasure is blurred for her, and I'm curious what your take on it is. So I thought, okay, that's even more interesting to me, so I put it on my list. We'll see how it goes. I think it's a trilogy.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, well, and when I looked it up, there were multiple trilogies. It was like, there's Kushiel's universe, and then there's another trilogy that's somebody else's, and there's another one that's somebody else's. So I think you could really go down the rabbit hole with this, and I don't know how far I'll go, but I'm definitely going to check out the first book.
Well, this could be really good or not so good, because I did read a book last year, and I can't think of the name of it, and it was good enough, but I guess it just wasn't good enough that I cared to follow up with a second book. But the heroine, the main person, had also blurred lines between pain and pleasure, so she didn't really know where the line was, or when to say no, or when to stop things. And it was the craziest thing I'd ever read. It was like, it was really bad for her, because she ended up with people who would do awful things, and she would never say no because she didn't know where the line was, and she couldn't clarify. And so I don't know, when I hear that, I'm like, it just brings back that book. And I'm like, it was just crazy. I'm like, why would you let someone do these things to you? Clearly you hate it, or clearly they're about to kill you, but it's pleasureful in a way. It was the weirdest thing I ever read. If you want to know about it, I will find it and give it to you. You can tell me if I'm like overreacting or not, because I don't know.
Well, I'm not personally a pain person. Pain, like receiving pain, is not my thing. So it's sometimes I like to read about it, sometimes I don't. We'll see how this one goes. But the bottom sentence of the blurb here says, "Not since June has there been an epic on the scale of Kushiel's Dart, a massive tale about the violent death of an old age and the birth of a new." And I used to read a lot of the old sci-fi / fantasy. This is more fantasy. So Dune, and then the Wheel of Time. So there are these big epic stories about the entire world remaking itself. And universe in some cases. So if it's compared to that, that's really interesting. And I don't know if I have the bandwidth right now to dive into a series that could be like 20 books long, but I'm really interested in experiencing the story world.
Oh my gosh, 20 books long. That's a commitment.
Wheel of Time was so hard to read. I don't know exactly how many books it is, but I actually didn't read this is going to be blasphemy for Wheel of Time fans, but I didn't actually read the last 3 books. Because I think the author died and his family, his son or something, finished them based on notes. And it was split into 3 books. And by that point, I was so over all the angst and drama, and there were so many characters and so many plot lines. I just read the wiki. I just read what happened.
Wow. Okay. Well, hey, sometimes it's like that. I mean, what can you do? If you're over it, you're over it. No offense to anybody, but
yeah. All right, what's your next one?
Okay, so this is the last one on my list, and this is Every Last Lie by Mary Kubica. It's a mystery and a thriller, and it takes place in Chicago, so I finally get to visit the Chicago burbs. And if you're unfamiliar with Mary Kubica, she is the author of The Good Girl, which was her first book, and, it was a bestseller. And she is really good at like character analysis. I almost want to say like breaking down her characters. So this book explores the state of a marriage, and it asks, kind of how well do you know your partner? So it's narrated between the wife and the husband, and it sounds like something horrific happened, and one person is like tormented by grief and the other person may not be, and we kind of find out what happened, what secret they're keeping, and it explores the dark recesses of the mind, it says. So plagued by grief, and so that should be interesting. I'm sure I'll like it. I've read other things by her and enjoyed them immensely, so this sounds like a little bit different than the typical mystery thriller that she writes, but delving into those characters is something she definitely is good at, so I expect to enjoy it.
I love the books that are psychological like that, where they really take the characters to a tough place and they surprise you with where they go and where they come out.
Yeah, it sounds like this is going to be one of those. So good stuff.
I'm looking forward to hearing about all of your feedback on these books that you're going to read. So you'll have to let me know when these reviews come out, because I absolutely want to follow up and find out, is it what you thought it was going to be? And are you glad that you had it on your list, you know?
Yeah, and you know what? Now that I have marked these, on purpose as books that I'm going to read, I will definitely be drawing attention to them, because I said I was going to read this for these reasons, and this was a success or a miss for these reasons. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. So not just a lot of times if I don't like a book, I just won't review it, or I'll give it a star rating, or maybe I'll put a small snippet of an opinion on Goodreads or Amazon, but I won't put it on my blog. But I like that you're saying, I'm going to tell you why I wanted to read it and whether or not it lived up to the expectations I had, and what about it was good or not good for me. And that'll help other people choose based on their affinity with your likes and dislikes. Yeah,
for sure. Because all we have when it comes down to making a choice on reading, obviously we have the cover art. Everyone looks at that, and then you read the synopsis, and then you read the reviews. So you make your own assumptions based on what you're reading and what you think you're going to get out of that. So I've had situations where you get something out completely different than what was presented, and I always hate that. Or you get something that you expect. So it's always interesting to see what you actually end up with when it's all said and done.
Yeah. I'm always the happiest when it's mostly what I expected, but there was a little pleasant surprise in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's tough. That's a tough marketing challenge.
It is, because it's like, I know they don't want to spoil the audience, but definitely don't deceive the audience just to get the readers. Don't do that.
Yes, the poor author suffers for that.
Yeah, for sure.
So the last thing on my list is Good Boy by Serena Bowen and Elle Kennedy. This is another author team. They write separately as well, but they together wrote the hymn duology. Is that a word? The two books that make up the hymn series. So it's Him and then Us. And Him was my absolute favorite book of, I don't know what year. I think it was 2015, maybe. I suck at years. I'm like, I love this book. I don't know when it was published. It's on the blog somewhere. But it was my book of the year, and it's freaking amazing. It's a gay hockey romance, and these are two guys who grew up together in hockey camps. They saw each other once a year at hockey camp, and they were best friends. One of them is gay, one of them is straight, or so he thinks. And then they end up facing off in the Frozen Four, like the college finals of whatever the college hockey cup is. And they meet up again, and they eventually get together. And then this is sort of the continuation of people in their sphere, the story of people around them. So one of them plays for Toronto, so it's based in Toronto. And this is about one of the teammates of Wes and the sister of Jamie. So it's directly related to my favorite couple, one of my favorite couples ever. And these characters are also really fun. And I think there's a whole series here based. If you look at the cover, there's a dog on the front. So Good Boy is like, there's a guy with a dog in his lap, so it kind of has like a canine feel to it. I don't know how that's going to play in the actual story itself, but I've seen a couple of the covers and they have dogs, so maybe there's a theme there.
Okay.
But I love hockey. I freaking love hockey, and I love bigger than life characters, and the hero of this is one of those just crazy bigger than life kind of guys, and I'm super excited about it.
It's one of them. I think the synopsis said he's a giant, adorable man-child.
Yes. Yeah.
That
sounds a little bit like my husband.
Yeah. Like one of those. Okay.
Yeah. And apparently they hooked up previously in one of the other books and nobody knows about it. And so, when's it going to get out and one of the guys going to have to say about it?
Wow. All right. Well, definitely you've got me adding some interesting things to my list because I might have to add this one too.
If you're going to do this one, you should try him first because, if you like gay romance, if you don't like gay romance, maybe just skip to this one. But if you do like gay romance, you cannot miss him. It is phenomenal.
Well,
in fact, it won a Rita Award. I'm pretty sure it won a Rita Award.
Really?
Which is the if you're not, you guys aren't familiar, the Rita is basically the Oscars for RWA, the Romance Writers of America. So romance writers who are part of RWA vote on their favorite reads of the year, and there's a big ceremony at the National Convention every year in July, and this one won last year, I think.
Wow. Well, you know what? You mentioned, like male romance and gay romance. So I did read a series long ago. It started with Invisible Life by Elin Harris. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't.
Well, it is amazing. And for a period, I was reading this whole series, and it follows this guy and his, he was kind of bisexual. He was hiding his sexuality. Then he's bisexual, and then he's gay. And then it's just this whole drama, right? So I did read that many years ago, and then I kind of just didn't read any more of it. And then recently, within the last year and a half, I started interviewing authors of male romance and other things. So I kind of have been dipping my toe back in the pond, and I'm enjoying the stuff that I've read so far. So I think it's definitely a fun genre, if you don't mind it. You know what I mean? It's not for everyone, but
it's a prickly thing to talk about. It's a little bit prickly to talk about because everybody's preferences are so different and diverse and unique. And I think the way I think about it in my brain, as far as like, why do straight women or women in general like gay romance? And I think it's sort of the parallel of men liking lesbian romance. Men love the idea, or straight men tend to like the idea of two girls together. So it totally makes sense because you're seeing double of what you like, right?
Yes.
It makes sense that we would enjoy seeing double of what we like, which is two hot guys together.
Yeah. Like, did you ever watch, this is totally off topic, but kind of on topic. Have you ever watched Queer as Folk, that show?
I think I've seen a couple episodes, yeah.
Okay, so back in the day, this is another kind of telling of my age, so sorry to myself. But I never really got into it, and then a coworker told me to watch it on, I think it was Showtime or something like that, and I was just in love with the two guys that were like the leading characters who were boyfriends. I just loved them to death. I had like a girl crush. I had a crush on them, I swear. It was so crazy, but it was awesome to watch, and it was like very cutting edge and just stuff you don't usually see on TV at that time. So I don't know, just a little shout out to Queer as Folk for people who like that show. It's in that this wheelhouse that we're talking about, but it's definitely it's fun to watch as a straight woman. That's all I'm gonna say. I'll leave it at that.
The theme here between the two of us is, if you are at all interested in gay romance, don't be afraid to check it out.
Right. Yes.
It may not be your thing, but at least you tried.
Exactly. And, I do have a couple of recommendations, too. So tweet at me, and I'll give you a few of the ones that I found that were good, as in, someone that doesn't read a ton of it. But I definitely do like what I do read, so.
Yeah. I mean, not every book is for every person, regardless of who the characters in it are. The story is sometimes separate from the characters themselves, so. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we covered a lot of ground. We've been at this for a little over an hour now.
Yay!
So we've got some really good work ahead of us, some good reads ahead of us, and we've talked about some excellent books that we already love, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we think about the stuff that we're adding to our TBR, definitely gonna read by the end of 2017 list.
I know, right? We should totally come back together at the end of the year and see what we actually did read.
That's a good idea. I think we'll do something at the end of the year where we talk about our favorite things of the year, and we're going to have to make a footnote for checking in on this list of stuff.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, so this has been a ton of fun, and thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I'm looking forward to more podcasts with Tamara from Shelf Addiction.
Oh, thank you, Sue.
Bye, everybody.